Good afternoon, good evening, and good morning, everyone. My name is Jimmy van Santen. I'm your host for today's VeeamLive Show. And today, for 1 hour, we have an interesting topic that we're going to talk about. It's going to be about why IT departments has to stick their heads into the cloud. And of course, I'm not going to do that by myself. I have 3 great, amazing guests around the table with me. So I'm going to introduce you one by one. Mark.
Hi,
welcome.
Jimmy. Thank you for having me here. So, Mark Samson, I work at Cisco. I head up the cloud architecture team at Cisco in the Netherlands.
Great. Jeroen.
Hi, Jimmy. So, my name is Jeroen Kulderij. I'm working at NetApp. I'm responsible for the Cisco Alliance in the EMEA region.
Very good. Stefan Renner, welcome.
Hey again. Welcome also from my side. Good afternoon. My name is Stefan Renner. I'm a solution architect within EMEA. Dedicated to alliances, so I'm taking care of both of these guys' alliances, so taking care of Cisco as well as NetApp. And it's great to be back in Amsterdam, I think the 5th time now. So yeah, great to see you again. And looking forward to the hour.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. So what we're going to talk about again, why IT departments needs to stick their head into the clouds. So first of all, digital transformation. So everybody knows that these days digital transformation is a big topic. All around the world, companies are having the challenges to get their data available every day, every minute, every hour. So what I would like to ask all of you here is, what is your definition of digital transformation?
Yeah.
Stefan.
Yeah, so I'm going to start with that topic because actually last week we had our Veeam conference in New Orleans going on, and this was of course one of the biggest topics we had, and I had a lot of discussions with our customers, of course our partners, and also the alliance partners around this topic. And usually in my presentations I'm used to say the last 10 years there have been a lot of buzzwords in IT. So we talked about cloud 5 years ago, then it was IoT, IoE, we talked about big data, we talked about all these different kind of things, and now we are at digital transformation, which is more or less just another word in IT business. But for me, it really is like a word that contains all of the other ones. So it's like a top word for all the other words like cloud and IoE and IoT, because it combines all of it in one word. So what does it mean? If we look back for like 10, 15 years, let's have a smart and an easy example. 10 years ago, if you ordered a taxi, for example, usually you were standing at the street and you raised your hand, or you have called a company that got you a taxi driver within a minute, or maybe within 10 minutes or an hour, so you don't really know when the taxi gonna arrive. But this is how it worked 10 years ago. But on this hand and on this side, also you paid the taxi driver at the end. So the money was going from you to the taxi driver, then it goes from the taxi driver to the company, and then at the end maybe there has been some kind of IT business connected to the company, because of course they have to do the billing, they have to do their accounting, they have to store the drives and all of these things. But it was just a rudimentary connection between the company and the IT department. Looking in these days and covering the whole EMEA region and also the global sphere, I'm used to say that in most of the countries we don't use any phone anymore to order a taxi by calling the company. We still use a phone, but we're using the apps now. A good example is today, so coming from the airport to this studio, I used Uber to come here, and at the end it was really getting an app, ordering an Uber, and then paying the company over Uber. So what does it mean? I connected my phone over the data center, which was running in the cloud, to Uber, and Uber connected again over the cloud to the driver, and then finally I got a driver, and I also knew the driver will be here in a minute. I even could see that the driver is literally around the corner, and this is a real change in our daily life. And digital transformation to me now means that this word is not only a word for IT departments or big companies, it's a word that impacts the whole life of all of us, because ordering a taxi, or there are different examples on that, is really something that everyone is doing, right? It's not impacting only an IT department, it impacts everyone. So we are becoming more and more depend more and more on IT services, and we need to make sure that this data in the cloud and this data in the data centers are available 24/7, because without that there is no more money going to the company, and there is no more taxi coming at the end, right? And this is how I see digital transformation in these days.
Right. The Uber example is great. I mean, that's a typical one where you see that digital transformation is really there. Mark, how do you see digital transformation from your point of view?
So for me personally, right, it's just the meaning is a better life. right? And a better life is due to the fact is that we drive more innovation, more competition. And that can be at a very small scale. Look at a company like MOBA, which is a small Dutch company. They're very innovative. And we have worked with them to digitize. MOBA actually works in the food industry. They build these machines that count eggs and look at the quality of eggs before they are moved into transport. But it allows them, they've digitized this information. They have moved that into the process, and they're now seeing they can do this process much more effective, right? So they have 2% more production, more eggs out of that process, which saves on a global scale, saves like 60,000 truck loads, and that saves an enormous amount of CO2. But that also allows me, as a consumer, when I am in the supermarket, to recognize whether this egg has been produced by a local farm or whether it comes from somewhere at the other side of the world, so I can make my own choice which egg I want to have. And for me as a citizen in the Netherlands, as a country, the Netherlands is also going through a digital transformation, as many other countries are in Europe, to be more competitive. So we, for instance, in Cisco in the Netherlands, we are working with the Dutch government to make sure that we produce better healthcare to people, for instance, who have a chronic disease, to allow them to connect them during this process of getting better when they're at home with people who can take care of them, people who understand what they have. So it means a lot of things, but for me personally, right, it's about better life.
Better life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about a better life?
Sounds great.
You need it.
Do I look like that? No, I think Stefan and Mark mentioned some great examples, and I think to summarize it overall, I think digital transformation is really about how digital information is going to maybe eliminate and transform business processes, which will result also better services to the customers of our customers. And that's been said very well in the examples that Mark and Stefan mentioned. So I think over the coming years, our customers really need to prepare themselves to think about how they are going to play along in this whole digital transformation to make sure they stay competitive and agile enough for the environment they will end up in a few years.
Right, and what I see now is based on what you're explaining as an example. We want to create a better life, and digital transformation is the way how we can do that. So when we go towards our customers and when we look at each of your solutions that you have, how are we helping our customers to enable them in the hybrid cloud journey? Mark?
So lots of customers, right, they're in this phase of transitioning from what we call a accidental use, right, of the technology which is fundamental to this which is cloud, which is the topic of today, right? We did a research with IDC on that, which is from 2016. There was a lot of data on several countries in EMER, right? And you see that most people are in this sort of accidental, starting to get into more managed use of cloud, right? So we help them to make this move from there to more optimal use of cloud. So in optimal use, you know what is the best place to run my workload for this specific type, for this specific regulation, right? For this specific security need which I have for this kind of workload, right? It's all about personal data. We get obviously new regulation on that in the EU within I think less than 12 months from now. So people need to understand where their data is, right? And if that's personal data, you probably want to put it in a place where you are conforming to that regulation. Maybe that's not the case so much when you don't have the personal data, but you have something like a test bed, or you have like you're developing an application where you can say, you know what, based on that project where I need capacity all of a sudden, I could maybe better put it somewhere in the public cloud, right? So we are building software which makes you understand, analyze what you have now, and allows you to, based on workload, put it on a specific spot, which we call cloud orchestration, and move that workload at the best place for the situation, the regulation, the security requirements, the availability requirement which you have for that workload.
Very good. And controlling data, Jeroen, I mean, and putting that in the right order, putting that in the right environment. How do you do that? How is that from your point of view?
Yeah, so when we look at NetApp, we have a concept which we call the data fabric. And data fabric is really all about how our customer is going to manage and control their data regardless where it resides. So whether that's an on-premise data center, a private cloud, a public cloud, a hyperscaler, or a managed service, or maybe even a hybrid cloud solution. We enable, with a number of different products and solutions, we enable our customers to move the data from cloud to cloud, from data center to cloud, or from cloud to on-prem data center, and manage it the same way as our customers are used to doing it on the traditional data center architectures. And I think that is very important for our customers, because at the end of the day, it's the data that's the value for these businesses, right? They base their decisions on this data, so it's like a top asset that they have. So I think data manageability and controllability is extremely important when you talk about cloud.
Okay. So data availability, Stefan, I mean, that's for Veeam, it's a big...
That's the topic we are in, right? So Veeam doesn't deliver any kind of storage system or compute platform. For us, it's availability, right? We even changed our slogan from like availability for the enterprise business, which is of course still our focus, but we call it now Veeam always on availability overall, right? So we say we want to provide availability for any workload on any platform across everything, right? Because again, we are heading to a time in life where everything really belongs on data. That's what they just said, right? And he briefly said it. In a lot of speeches, a lot of discussions, we really hear that the data is the new oil, right? So you hear that, of course, a lot in the last couple of weeks, but it can be only oil if it is available, of course, because it's useless, like the example he just mentioned with the X, right? It's a great example for digital transformation, by the way, because it really shows how IoT is connected with cloud business and how cloud business is then connected with all the other topics within the digital transformation. But data availability, again, is for customers top priority, and this is really shifting. When I look back, maybe 5 years, 6 or 8 years, data availability was always important to customers because they need to make sure that data is accessible. But as they are now moving from, IT is like a cost center, and we have to have IT because we need some kind of mails, we are now more and more shifting in an area where IT is the central point of every business. Without IT, they cannot achieve any more revenue. They cannot grow. They cannot make any money. This is why IT really becomes the central point in these days. And this is why data availability and data accessibility is really key. And of course, that's where Veeam is in, and that's why Veeam is, of course, partnering with Cisco and NetApp, because Veeam can actually deeply integrate into the data fabric story. So while NetApp is moving around the data from on-premise to off-premise to a co-location, and Cisco is delivering the performance, the networking, which is a really important part of the whole story, Veeam is making sure that this data is available and orchestrated across all of these cloud platforms and across all of these data centers.
Okay, and what I'm just curious about, when you talk about availability gap, how do you see that in the market, and how are customers have to cope with that?
Yeah, so first of all, what is availability gap? So talking to a lot of customers over the years, and also again last week, for example, it's always a good example to talk about recent discussions. It's always the case that customers obviously have some kind of data protection solution in place because, the data center wasn't built just a day ago. It's there for 10 years, 20 years, right? So we call these type of solutions legacy solutions because these are products that have been built 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and then simply developed. But these legacy solutions are usually not able to really fulfill the requirements and SLAs that customers has in these days. So what Veeam does is we do everything a bit different, right? If you look into the product and how we orchestrate and manage things, it's a little bit different. And we make sure that this gap, and the gap is simply that an IT department says, the SLA I have to fulfill, I cannot fulfill right now because I don't have the tool in place, I don't have the strategy and design in place. I need to change the way how I do availability. And this gap is really big. So we do an availability report every year. So Veeam really asks close to 2,000 CIOs across all verticals, across all countries and all sizes. And we ask them, okay, do you think the solution you have in place is really the one that can fulfill the SLAs and can fulfill these digital transformations? And the gap is usually between 85 and 90%, where the CIO tells us, yeah, the solution we have cannot do what we need to do. And this is the availability gap, and this is what we try to close, and this is what we close by combining Veeam with the Alliance Partner Solutions and make sure that we can close this availability gap. Yeah.
Great. Yep. So what I've heard so far is that managing data, putting them in different cloud environments, I mean, that's a key topic that Jeroen, you mentioned. Mark, what I would like to ask is, when you look at that way, how we put data together, how are we able to support our customers into be more agile and more faster in working with that data that is available and that they have a competitive overview comparing with what is already in the market?
Okay, before you want to have, customers need to be more agile, right? Because the business is requesting new things from IT. Mm-hmm. And the business is expecting an answer not tomorrow or the week after or the month after. They are expecting an answer now, right? Just as a service, which they're used to have an answer, have like you and I with a phone, we get an answer directly. And the mobile brought the power of the cloud to the individual user, and this is the service that the business is now expecting from IT. And what we see is that businesses now, that the IT within those companies, right, they're struggling with what do we have now and how do we move to the cloud, right? It's still move. Mm-hmm. We're not there. Mm-hmm. We're still in transitioning. So what we first do at Cisco, we have this concept we call about ASAP, right? Analyze, simplify, automate, protect, right? But the protect is the part where you take care of, right? And the analyze thing is the thing where we start first. And we talked about data, right? And the power of data. We now use this power of data within the solutions that we provide to our customers, to provide them insights in what they have today, right? Provide them insights in how workloads are connected, which workloads talks to which workload, which are grouped together. So you can understand, hey, these workloads, they belong together, they talk to each other, and we can move them there. Mm-hmm. We also give them insights in their application performance and the experience that customers have based on that, right? So what is it if you just move the web front end of that whole stack into the public cloud because you need that scale at the specific, what happens then to the application performance? How much impact does that have, for instance, if you are a company selling things on internet? What impact does that have on the on your business and the baskets being left filled up but not paid for, right? So we can all measure that, and we can put that business effect back to the effect of what it costs in IT, right? So we can move the business, I would say the business indicator, what is the impact to your customer experience, back to what do you need to do in IT. So that's insights. It starts all with insights. What do you have today? What's the impact? And then I start with ASAP, right? Simplify. So a single platform, right? A single platform. We talk here about a platform which is called FlexPod, right? For the private cloud, which you connect into hybrid cloud solutions. Software layer on top from Veeam, from Cisco, from NetApp, three software platforms on top, which take care of data movement, taking care that data is everywhere, that you have availability everywhere, and we take care of the orchestration and the networking, right? So you have a single platform wherever you go, which cloud you go to, right? And then third thing is you know what you have. You have the platform, automate stuff, right? And we definitely need to automate stuff. So we can reproduce it. We can do it every time in the same way. And then, for instance, we talked about outages and the availability, the availability gap, right? A big example is obviously the outage of Amazon S3, right? A couple of months ago, that people relied completely on that single cloud to bring their application into the mobiles of their users. When S3 went down, and it came up very fast, which is remarkable, right? But it has a lot of impact on all these SaaS offerings running on Amazon S3.
Right.
They didn't automate stuff, so they could not move to another cloud at that moment. If you would have taken care of the automation, you would have taken care of data availability, you would have had the opportunity to say, okay, Amazon S3, so we recognize that, let's move to another cloud. Let's bring up our platform at that other cloud provider. So this is what we do, right? Analyze, taking care of insights, simplify, single platform, automate stuff, and then obviously protect, which is more important, but that's something which always needs to be there.
Right. Well, Jeroen, FlexPod, so Mark already mentioned it.
Yeah.
One platform, simplifying it. What can you tell more about? What can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so FlexPod is really a platform where initially it was designed for our customers to really to save time to bring that data center platform to production, right? So it's always been this way, and it's really, over the years, it's been 7 years now since FlexPod has been on the market. We continuously have been improving it, also to reduce that cycle to bring FlexPod into market. And what we see now is that customers have choices over different types of environments. So a customer can choose to go to a public cloud. Customer can choose to do a hybrid cloud or a managed services cloud. And FlexPod is actually a platform that's now designed to address multiple of these type of environments. And customers can rely on this platform to be validated and tested before they actually purchase it. So that saves them a lot of time to actually bring a platform like FlexPod into production. And that really ties into customers that's seeking for more agility and shorter go-to-production cycles.
Okay. So protecting data, Stefan. How does Veeam relate to that when you look at the FlexPod solution that we have? Yeah,
so I have actually a pretty good example because I was flying in from Sweden this morning. And if you believe me or not, I have been there for a customer who actually runs right now 2,400 VMs on FlexPod, which is a perfect example for this meeting here and this round here. Because the reason why I've been there was the customer wants to have and wants to simplify. So what you just said, right? Wants to simplify data protection for the FlexPod environment, and he's actually looking into leveraging some cloud services, simply to move forward, right? To offload some tasks to the cloud, and this was the meeting about. And the good thing is, due to the integration of Veeam into the FlexPod story and into the FlexPod itself, we can easily, again, orchestrate and manage the FlexPod environment on-premise, but then also leverage all the functionality Cisco and NetApp can offer, especially in the data fabric, to move some parts of this data into the cloud and leverage cloud services. And next to that, we announced last week at Veeam, and I can encourage you to check out our announcements on our website, a couple of things that are related to cloud business, because again, we see more and more customers moving into the cloud. It's a slow progress, so we don't expect that everyone is going to cloud in the next whatever year, but over the next 10 years, we will see more and more workloads moving to the cloud, also in EMEA, also in Europe, where we are usually kind of in a waiting position, right? We are looking around what's happening in other regions, and then we really kick it off and move to new technologies. But we see more and more companies moving to new technologies like cloud services. And And this is also where Veeam is investing in. We brought out a solution called Veeam Availability for Amazon AWS, which is exactly what you just said, right? A solution to make sure we can protect workloads that are running on AWS. Because the example he just mentioned is a great example. These 3 hours of downtime in AWS resulted in like $180 million of lost revenue for companies that were running in the cloud service, right? And this is a huge impact. So the more you concentrate on a service, the more impact it has overall on revenues and on results of companies if it goes down. So this is nothing we would expect every day, of course, but customers and partners need to have a solution in place to make sure if there is something happening, they still have the data and they still have access to the data at some point, right? And this is what Veeam is in, this is what we are delivering, and that's what we are working on.
All right. So Mark, I like the format that you're mentioning, that it's to simplify IT environments, which is great. But what I'd like to ask you, also for our customers who are watching this, what does it mean for lowering down their costs? Is there any examples that you can use when you look at, okay, simplifying IT environments? What does it mean then for the costs that the running costs that are there?
Okay, we have, for every customer, by the way, this is different, right? Mm-hmm. This is, just to say generically, this will simplify, simplification using FlexPod with Veeam, etc., will lower your cost, etc. So many, it depends on your own situation, depends on where you are now and where you want to go to. Mm-hmm. But we see tremendous results from people, from customers, moving into simplification, single platform, and then automating. As simplifying makes it easy to automate, right? Because it's a single platform. The automation really brings down the cost. That's tremendous, and it also brings up, I would say, the quality of the service. The quality, the fact is that you can over and over, you have the same results. So that said, right, that has an impact on the work that people do today, right? So if you're now used to do that workflow and you do it day in, day out, for instance, to bring up a VMware environment, right? And you do it day in and day out, and you just click, and you bring up that environment, right? You can automate that stuff, and you can even have a user of your service do that for you, because they're authorized to do that. They have self-service capabilities. Their experience of the service you provide goes up. The quality of the service goes up because it always goes in. It happens in the same way, right? Because whether it's Monday, Sunday, Tuesday afternoon, or like this today for Netherlands, a big evening, because we finally get to a Champions or a Euro Cup final. Yes. Even on those nights, your users can still request services without you being there, right? So quality goes up, right? And that. So I was telling you about different work styles, right? Mm-hmm. Which means that you go from doing that same workflow, which is boring, right? Every day, hand in by the hand, right? You have to concentrate now on what kind of service, what kind of workflows do we need to automate, right? And there's the difference in cost savings. Right. How much do you automate? Which workflows did you already automate? What have you provided to your end users? And now I'm seeing that Jeroen is dying to. I
see his eye. I'm like, he really wants to. I just want to add something.
Let's give him some room.
To give it an overview, it's basically the same thing that we saw when we came with FlexPod, right? We took that concept and tested everything to make it easier for our customers and faster to deploy new workloads. And we're now extending that to the processes that goes into the application layer. to make it easier for everyone to get the, if you need to roll out the same application every time, why does someone need to do it every time? You can automate that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then you can provide actual services to the end users and make them do it themselves or request it themselves. So you extend that idea of shortening that whole deployment cycle from a hardware perspective all the way to a application layer.
So we sort of like use the way that people work with clouds, the technologies, the processes they use are moving back into private cloud. So we bring the scale and the innovation of cloud, public cloud, into private cloud, right? For instance, in public cloud, they're very used to handle workloads like cattle, right? That example must resonate, right? Mm-hmm. And within private cloud, people still care of their virtual machines, their workloads as pets, right? You have to take care of them, you have to update them, you have to feed them, you need to take them to the doctor, etc. That's a very costly exercise, right? Yeah. So now what we see now is due to automation, you can say, you know what, get rid of the old environment, build a new one, right? And we keep on rebuilding new one because it doesn't cost anything. Right. We just get rid, and maybe for people who have pets, you don't throw away your cats and then just bring in new ones. We all understand that, right? But that's the sort of processes and mechanisms and technology we need to take in from the public cloud into private cloud. So we bring down the scales. That's the great thing about cloud. You bring the scale and the innovation of public cloud, right, into your environment, and the privacy, and the security. This is hybrid cloud. Will bring it back to the hybrid, to the public cloud. So this is the two ways, right?
How to move, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that orchestration and automation, as you just said, so the beginning of automation and orchestration was really in the cloud, because the first companies that try to automate and orchestrate stuff are service providers, right? Because they are in a situation where they don't want to configure each and every VM they are selling to a customer by themselves. They want to have it fully automated. And at the end, this automation is part of the simplifying you mentioned in the beginning, right? Because it's getting more easier for customers, it's getting more easier for partners to get access to these new services. And I agree, this automation and orchestration piece is now really going into on-premise data centers as well. So it's like stretching from on-premise over the cloud to make sure you can handle your data either on-premise or in the cloud with the same orchestration layer and the same look and feel and the same easiness. And this is also what our customers are looking into, because they want to get the things easier. They want to have only one management interface, and they want to make sure that they are able to understand and orchestrate the things really quickly, right? So they need to adapt new things. They need to make sure that there is no 4 weeks training required to understand new technologies. And this is what we are working on together to make sure that these products are in the market and that these orchestration and management products are available.
Yeah, and we're quickly moving into a new era, right? Is where we call it autonomous clouds, right? Or autonomous data centers, right?
That always scares me a bit.
Yeah,
when someone says something is autonomous, right?
But we now use the analytics, right? Which we have on the network analytics, which we have, the application analytics, which we have, can now drive back if we see the analytics going in the wrong direction. The customer experience is going down. You get less sales out of your e-store, right? We can drive that back down to something which has the performance is not great, and we can start to automate stuff. And this can be very simple, right? Yeah. We can just bring up capacity, right? Or we bring up capacity, we'll put some additional load balancing capacity, then we'll add more storage and faster storage capacity into that and bring up the performance of the application. So this is I think this is what we call the new area autonomous. we talked about this with, there's still lots of improvement to do and really focus on the business outcome of IT, which is really, it's really all about that,
yeah,
right?
And I think you've been right saying a thing like 2 minutes ago that this is really depending on each and every customer, because there is not a template that fits for everyone, right? It's different for every customer, every person at the end. But what I see overall, talking to customers, I see that more and more IT departments are really shifting from having silos internally, so saying I got a network team, I got a storage team, I got a virtualization team and a data protection team, and try to get one big team, right? Because to be flexible, to be agile, to use a FlexPod, because at the end FlexPod is kind of a converged stack, right? It includes more or less everything you need in your data center. But to manage this and to make sure you can really react flexible on new requirements, you need to make sure that the IT departments are really working as one team. Because like several years ago, it was still the case, if you need a new network, if you need access to something, it takes you whatever, 10 forms and 4 weeks to get it done. And this is in these days simply too long, right? You need to make sure that you can be flexible and move forward in a shorter time.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about FlexPod, Jeroen. So when you look at the hybrid cloud environment, how do you see the big picture with FlexPod? What can you tell a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so what we have is with FlexPod is a portfolio of different architectures that we designed. And FlexPod can reside in different types of environments. So, for example, you can have a FlexPod in your own data center running as a private cloud, completely in your own control. But you can also have a FlexPod running at the service provider and actually get it as a managed service and still manage and control it the same way as you would do it if it was on your own premise. We also have, if you want to tie it into a hybrid cloud environment, we have solutions that tie into the FlexPod and make sure you have a connectivity to different hyperscalers. Where you can actually have, and we call this NetApp private storage, where you can actually have a smaller FlexPod running in a data center close to the Microsoft or the AWS cloud, having your data safely secured, stored on your own environment, and still having workloads running in the cloud. That's specifically interesting for companies that are looking for scalability in terms of workload performance, but cannot move that data into a public cloud, for example. So there are different environments, but FlexPod can fit in these different environments. Yeah.
All right. And when you look at Veeam, Stefan, when you look at workloads, how are we able to make sure that Veeam integrates in the right order to protect the data that is there?
Yeah, so as already mentioned before, due to the integration into Data ONTAP, and obviously Data ONTAP is the operating system running in the FlexPod, we can easily orchestrate and manage the data that is stored in there. So that simply means if you have your workload running on top of your private FlexPod in your own data center and you want leverage, for example, NPS, NetApp Private Storage, what Veeam does is we take care of your applications. So we take care that everything is going to be application consistent. We make sure that your logs are truncated, whatever you need to do for your application. And then we make sure that the NetApp ONTAP system understands that the backup is done in an application layer and transfers the data then to the NPS destination or to the public cloud using, for example, ONTAP Cloud again. And this is really, you can see it as a single point of management and a single point of view across your private as well as your public data center or private and public cloud. Veeam is handling the orchestration and data availability part within these two data centers, to replicate and to protect the data.
Okay, all right. So we have FlexPod, hybrid cloud, we have digital transformation. Mark, again around Cisco, what is the next steps? What do you see for customers that they need to focus on?
For customers to focus on the next steps, right? Well, we first talked about the cloud maturity, where customers. So we talked about understand where you are, simplify your environment, automate stuff, right? And think about that when you automate stuff is I would say, in things that you can repeat, right? In building blocks which you can reuse instead of building blocks which are unique. And when you build a house, right, you use bricks that you can, those bricks, you can use it in any house, right? So we have those little bricks when we build up houses, but all these houses are different. So think about in small sort of bricks to build your own house. And that's one thing. So that's what we see also is that reusability is important, but also think about openness, right? So you need to think about a platform which is open towards the clouds which you use. We see a lot of people moving into platform as a service choices, which really lock them down in a single cloud, right? And they cannot, even if they want, they can move out. They can maybe get the data out of the cloud, but they've put all their applications on top of that on that BaaS platform. So how will they move and go somewhere else? That has to really be a deliberate choice. And with the orchestration platform which we provide, the enterprise platform as a service offerings which you now have, which we can automate on top of those, you really have an open choice, right? You can move from Amazon, Azure, into IBM's cloud, into Alibaba, right? And this is open cloud also is important because with digital transformation, you can start with a new idea, right? And that can work out brilliantly through mobile and cloud. You can scale it worldwide very, very fast. You're actually not limited to that, right? You're not limited to a local market. You can go and scale and grab worldwide market share. But what if you're in China, right? China's government has specific regulations like the EU has specific regulations, right? You still want to have that workload type, your environment, and move it into the cloud, which is, well, perfectly suited for the Chinese market, which is maybe Alibaba's cloud, right?
Right.
Or when you're in Germany and you maybe want to use a more German, a more European style cloud. So moving that into a specific, if you really build your application on specific cloud services which are really highly proprietary, right, and not open, limit your choice to global scale, right? Openness, so I think openness is an important thing. Reusability is really important. And then if we have that, and we have a platform like the platform from NetApp and from Veeam, where data can move around in your platform from cloud A to cloud B, right? Then we have something which we can just scale out, put the workload at the right place for the right performance, deliver the right customer experience.
This is also an opportunity for our customers, right? So when a customer is not locked in with their data or workloads in a specific cloud, and they can freely move from cloud to cloud, they could even look at like which cloud is, has the best offer for today,
right?
And I move my workloads to that cloud because it's going to save me some money on the workloads. You then can find even an economic model to have the optimum cost out of your infrastructure.
And that's where your data fabric message comes in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And talking about cost, right? Because if people talk about automation, they say, yeah, but they see this mountain in front of them, right? This big hurdle where they have to go over, right? They say, oh, we need to automate all the work which we have to do manually, right? Oh my. What we find is that we tackle the biggest problems first, right? The thing which they really have day in, day out, they have to do, we automate those use cases first, and very small ones, right? That funds, that generates money because you get time. You get time to do other stuff. Then you start to automate another sort of layer of services. So you work out what we call a sort of self-funding roadmap. Automation, orchestration, building on the right platform generates money to kick off a new phase of that same program and move into more services. and then autonomously, over time, build out a complete set of services which you can just then improve on. And like your app on your mobile phone, which gets serviced in the back, right, and upgraded in the back, you continue to improve that service, and the customer experience with your business users have with your platform, and then that will sort of like give them the appetite to get more, right? But like you have a good app, you say, you know what really would be nice is this. You start to give feedback, and that feedback is important for the next phase. So that's what we also say, right? We talk about reuse, we start self-funding roadmap, etc., reusable blocks, and talk to your end users, get their feedback, and when you build a platform which is expands itself, builds some better services, you will get that feedback.
Yeah, and one feedback we are getting, and this fits 100% in what you just said, is that our customers are really looking into the cloud, right? They want to leverage cloud services compared to 5 years ago, where at least in the Central European region, everyone was still, again, in a waiting position, looking what the cloud's going to be in the next years. They are now more open, and most of the customers are really looking into a solution that delivers backup as a service or disaster recovery as a service. That's, if you follow the IT news, if you follow the surveys we do, this is always number one. And number two, this is also why Data Fabric is that successful, because it's really about moving data around, but also using the cloud for disaster recovery and backup as a service purposes, right? And this is also what Veeam is investing in. So what we have is a solution called Veeam Cloud Connect, and this combines more or less what you just said. It combines cloud business with the freedom to choose which cloud provider I want to go to. Because what does it mean? Veeam Cloud Connect can either run into the public cloud, so saying I want to install it in AWS, I want to install it in Azure, or it can be installed by a service provider, by a local service provider, by themselves, running on top of a FlexPod, for example. And then this service provider, the local service provider, is delivering these cloud services to the end user. So the benefit is definitely that a customer can really say and can really trust this partner, because he knows my data is going into a cloud, but it's a cloud that is running in my trusted data center. It's running the partner I'm working with since 10 years. So if there is going something wrong with my data, I can actually go to the partner and get my data back personally if I want. And this is really where we are investing in, because, yeah, again, it's really the customer that has the choice to go either to a public cloud provider or to kind of a private cloud provider, meaning a local service provider delivering these services by themselves, but still fully integrated, fully automated across the private and the public cloud in this case.
So when you look at the disaster recovery as a service and backup as a service, are those the next steps, what you see that customers need to look more after?
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it a next step, because this is where we are in right now, right? What I just said is not something we're going to see the next 4 years. It's something that's happening right now. A lot of customers are looking into backup as a service, disaster recovery as a service, and this is also why the cloud market is really growing. This is also, of course, why the Veeam numbers in the cloud business are growing. So this is where we're investing in, yes. And I would, of course, encourage all the customers out there to look into cloud services and see what you can actually leverage, because no one will force a customer to say you have to move everything to the cloud. And that's another thing, right? There was never a real definition what cloud means. Everyone has his own view of what a cloud is. At the end, everything is a cloud that is stored some way in the internet, right? So I would say cloud business doesn't mean that you move everything in your on-premise data center completely in a cloud data center. It simply means you leverage some kind of cloud storage, some kind of cloud services, no matter what, and just pick the right ones for you. And yeah, I think a lot of customers already started to look into these services, because Office 365, for example, is also a cloud service, right? So yeah, a lot of people are talking about that.
So when you look at Data Fabric, you have the different cloud environments that you are explaining, Jeroen. So when you look at the disaster recovery as a service and the backup as a service, how can you tell a little bit more about how that looked like in your Data Fabric message?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we see is most of our customers, the first workload they will move to the cloud is actually a backup and recovery workload. Right? That's what we did research, and that showed that backup and recovery is the first workload they move to the cloud. So we have a solution called AutoVault, which is basically a very, I call it a bit simple, but I always call it the data vacuum cleaner. You just put it between your data center, and it basically you turn it on, and it sucks all the data, the data that you say should be sucked up, of course.
So that's like an autonomous vacuum cleaner?
Yes, like a robot vacuum cleaner, which I ordered one yesterday, actually. But this AutoVault that ties into different cloud providers, and basically you could then take that data from your on-premise data center into a cloud provider, and then you have your first step very easily to the cloud. Yeah, and then with Veeam.
Yeah, I was just about to say that there is the AutoVault, and at the end, Veeam is the one that is placing the data on the AutoVault, and AutoVault simply takes care that it's moved to any cloud that is supported, of course. And yeah, it's again a combination of both vendors at the end, right? Because we are landing our backups on an AutoVault and use it as kind of a cloud gateway to the cloud services.
So really customers that are looking into moving to the cloud and they're thinking, okay, what can be my first workload that I want to move to the cloud? AutoVault is a great solution to make that first step with.
Especially for backup as a service.
And if you, exactly. And if you would like to extend or you want to manage that data that's in the cloud, we have solutions like Cloud on or ONTAP Cloud, which can actually manage the data in the cloud as well.
So managing that into the cloud, Mark, around the Cisco approach, what can you tell a little bit more about that? So what do customers need to understand how Cisco is involved with that?
We actually do not do. We restrain ourselves because this is the reason why we are working here, right? Together, right?
just to make it clear.
Data management, right? Cisco has specific pieces on what we call analyzing data for specific, for instance, network data, right? We talked about the insights.
Right.
We analyze application data, right, to see what the experience is of customers. And what we also do is we virtualize data, which is that's a layer on top, I would say more like a virtual data store, right, where you can access data like it's a data warehouse, a virtualized data warehouse. It's another layer, it's more an application layer. And we have that due to the fact is that we needed that to build IoT solutions, right? And IoT solutions, they have the concept of data which is local. You need to analyze data local to make smart decisions, to support your operational process. Operational processes are real time. And what you currently see with data warehouse, they support tactical and strategic processes, which is long time. You have weeks, etc. You can run it for a night. You can do a night job on the analytics. So we have a virtualized data layer, right, which allows customers to present a single data warehouse and to run your analytics on top of that. But you see it in the area of IoT, and will beautifully run on the data layer, which is built by Veeam and by NetApp, right? So this is what we do. And secondly of all, Cisco does a lot of things to secure data, right? And secure data in terms of not in making sure the availability is just make sure that nobody else can take your data or alter your data, right? So we have lots of security solutions. We were actually last week by one of the key analytics, Gartner, mentioned as the security company to work with. And that's in the area of next generation firewalls, next generation IPS, etc., which actually is sort of, and we've seen that recently with the WannaCry breakout.
Right.
It's a necessity, right? You really need to work on that, right? Yeah.
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
We protect data from that part. we make use of the data within data virtualization, and we use data to support IT operational processes to make sure that people get better insights.
Yeah. And I think this really shows why actually vendors are partnering or having alliance departments, right? Because a lot of customers always ask me, what are you doing? Because what is alliances, right? Why do you need something like this? So at the end, you explained it by yourself, because he said, you're not a data availability company. No. NetApp is not a server company. We are not a storage or server company, right? But at the end, we want to bring one solution to the customer, because what also changed the last, I would say, years, and this needs to be changed in a lot of customers, or at a lot of customers still, is that it's one solution. So they want to have one service, right? Previously, everyone was just buying a storage system. Half a year later, they were buying some servers. Another year later, they were talking about data availability. But at the end, the solution was never working well, because it didn't really fit in each other, right? And these days, it's one solution, and this is what customers are looking into, right? They want to have one solution that is available, and under this solution, there is Cisco, there is NetApp, there is Veeam, and this is why we have alliance departments, right? Because we need to make sure that the solutions are working well together, and we can deliver this enterprise or fulfill these enterprise requirements of our customers.
Yeah. No, absolutely. All right, so we're almost at the end of the show. So yeah, that's right. It's almost an hour now. So just to summarize it, so we talked about digital transformation and the challenges, talked about the hybrid cloud environment. What I would like to understand from you, what are your final thoughts? So, Jeroen, what do you would like to say?
So, as a conclusion, I would say that it's the data that drives the decision making of our customers every day, right? And especially like in these environments as today, where companies are expected to become more agile, respond fast to market changes. I think with the alliance of Cisco, NetApp, and Veeam, we can provide our customers solutions to make sure that data is always available, it's in control, wherever it resides. So we give the freedom back to our customers on where the data and the workload should be running, specifically for their cases. And I think that's something that our customers should realize. I want to make also a remark that a lot of customers have a perception of our companies as being hardware providers, etc. That's not the case anymore. That's the old way of thinking. We provide different solutions that really tie into the cloud providers that we have today, and really provide the control to our customers. So I think that's something really to keep in mind.
Keep in mind. Very good. Stefan.
Yeah, just not that much to add. I think NetApp was never a hardware company, by the way. Talking to your founders, I would say it's always software, because software is the one that is handling data and making sure all of the things are possible, right? But for a conclusion, I can say, first of all, I love to work with Cisco and NetApp, of course. We are moving forward fastly. I can, again, encourage all of the viewers out there, or the audience out there, to check the website on the announcements we did last week. I think Data Fabric with Cisco and Veeam can really solve some issues of the customers right now, being flexible, being agile, adapt new technologies, and just move forward. Get the most out of the data, because it's the new oil. And that's what I would say.
All right.
For today.
Mark, closing comments.
Yeah, closing comments. Thank you. Well, first of all, it has been great to be here, right, with great partners. I think we started off with saying better life.
Better life.
Driven by a lot of innovation. Right, and I think the closing comment would be for me is that actually you have the innovation of 3 companies here that can help all of you who are listening and viewing us. We have the innovation of 3 companies here helping you with your digital transformation and creating that better life for your customers.
Great, great. Well, I would like to thank you all for being here. I mean, it was great to have you here in the room. Hope to see you next time.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Thanks for watching, of course.
Absolutely. So we're coming to the end of the show now. So I'd like to thank all of you viewers to be here. I hope you learned a lot of this. Hope to see you next time and talk to you soon. Thank you and bye-bye.